guys, welcome to the live stream for May 24th, 2017. My name is Dana Morningstar if you are new here, and this is something that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go for, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours, kind of depending. So if you have questions for the live stream, you can email me if you're not comfortable asking them live. You can email me at deardana@thriveafterabuse.com, and I will do my best to get the questions on the show. So let's see, who's here? Tanitria, welcome. J Meeby says, yay, I made it. Hi, Dana. Sharat is here. Welcome, welcome. Narc Wellness is here and asks, how am I feeling? I'm feeling better. I still have my cough, but it's, you know, every day it's a little bit better. Lou is here. So yes, so Tanitria is also asking me how I'm feeling. Yeah, I will be holding my microphone again and then pulling it away when I have to cough, so bear with me. And oh, this was bugging me last time. This cord dangles right in front of the camera, but okay, we got it. Ryan is here. Hello. Donna and Jennifer. So before Cynthia's here. So before we get started, I just wanted to tell you guys, I saw the craziest documentary last night. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it for a couple different reasons. Lucy is here. Hi, Lucy. We need to touch base. I will be emailing you tomorrow about book club stuff. And so this documentary, it's called Tickle. And the subtitle is, It's Not What You Think. And that's so true. So this documentary, and I'm sorry, it's a total spoiler alert, so if you want to see it, plug your ears. But it starts off with this reporter who comes across this website having to do with competitive tickling. And he decides, oh wow, that's really strange. I want to learn more about this. And so I don't know, kind of long story short, he starts emailing these people back and forth, and they just start sending him these awful emails attacking him. And I guess the journalist guy, he's gay, and he works for like a gay publication, and whoever responds to him is sending all of these very hateful anti-gay emails back to him, and the journalist guy is, he's a riot. So he's like, this made him want to investigate even more because the emails he was getting were just so strange. So he ends up kind of going down this rabbit hole, and long story short, the guy that's running this ring is a complete psychopath and is luring these young boys, like high school age boys, into these like competitive tickling competitions, which are kind of a farce. Like they really do get tickled, and the guy is paying them all this money, but then where it takes this bizarre twist, and then that's kind of strange enough, but where it really gets strange is he then starts taking these videos of them being tickled by other boys or other men and starts blackmailing them with these videos. It's just really, really, like not even just blackmailing them, like trying to destroy them. Because he doesn't want anything in return. He just wants to destroy them. So he starts sending these videos to like their high school, to friends and family, posting them on YouTube, posting them on Vimeo, posting them all over the internet. And also then making these accusations that these boys are gay, that they're child molesters, that they're a poor representation of their school, that that they are going to basically put out all of this bad press surrounding any place that hires them or lets them play, high school or college sports. It's really wild. And so I think the video is good for two different reasons. One, I think it's important to kind of get the word out that this is a thing, and for anybody who comes across this, like, to realize that it's not just a scam, it's run by a complete psychopath who is intent on destroying young boys. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. But I think it's also interesting from our perspective of how a psychopath's behavior works, and kind of the level of the complete lack of empathy and the complete lack of regard, and how these kids did nothing. Like they did this guy no wrong, and he was so out to win. And somebody in the documentary, I was getting so worked up over it. I was watching it with Travis last night, and I kept saying, I'm like, this is not about tickling. Like, this is not about tickling. It's about power and control. It's about abuse. Like, this guy, like, please, I hope somebody sees that this is what's really going on. The tickling is this own guy's kind of, I think, weird fetish, unresolved issues with his own sexuality. But he's using this as a gateway to then further destroy these boys. Very, very interesting stuff. So, worth checking out. And also, before I get going too, the other big thing this week, much, the big thing in that's been going on with me, and that's probably going to negatively impact a few of you guys, and I'm so sorry, is with my book. So if you remember last week, I had said, because I'd been sick, I had postponed. It was supposed to be released on May 19th. I'd put it up for pre-sale. I had pre-sold. I quit looking at the number of copies because I was getting panicked about it, but there were quite a few. And because I was sick, I postponed the date to May 31st, but then like the counter, Amazon has this like very stressful like countdown clock, and it says like days, hours, minutes, seconds to when you have to upload your book, when it's going to go live. And I noticed that when I postponed it, that it didn't stop the counter, and I thought, oh well, it just needs to refresh, like maybe there's something on Amazon's side. I didn't think too much of it because it was showing that it had actually been moved to May 31st. Well, a friend of mine who had ordered a copy then sends me a picture like May 19th, like basically saying, hey, your book is live, which sent me into a panic because what I had uploaded to Amazon, like 45 or 60 days ago, was just the rough draft of it. Because you have to upload something in order to actually show, yes, indeed, I have like a rough draft of this book while you're pre-selling it. So long story short, everybody that ordered a pre-sale of the book has a like rough draft of it. It's a hot mess, and I think it's pretty obvious that it's a rough draft. I mean, there's notes to myself on it. I mean, the book is not formatted. It was a mess. So I ended up trying to get a hold of Amazon. I have an email out to them. They said that they would get back to me by this Friday. So I'm like, I can't just have this book out there. So I unpublished it. So thankfully nobody can buy this book because it's like not obviously not the quality, not the book that I would want people to read. But just so you guys know, if you have ordered the book, what you have is not the final book. So please, it's going to be on your Kindle. I don't know how all of this is going to be resolved with Amazon. I wish there was some way they could like pull it off of people's Kindle. But if you do go to read it, I guess if anything, get a good laugh out of it. We're all human. These mistakes happen. I apologize, and I will be putting the book back up here once it's done and formatted. Lucy says, oh, now I understand, Dana. She says, it seems like a draft copy, but it's cool. I'm still enjoying it. Oh, no. And then Wallace says, Dana, I sent you an email, but it got returned back to me. Yeah, my email is a hot mess, too. I don't even understand what that's about. My email has been jinky for like a long time. And I don't even know what's wrong with that. So, one of the many things that are on my list of things to get resolved and to do. So, okay, there's some questions coming through. That seemed pretty major, so let me just jump right into it. So Mala says, okay, she's trying to divorce her ex, and he keeps threatening that he will not divorce her. It's as though I'm his personal property. So, okay, you nailed it, and that's very much the mentality that they have. It's, everything is theirs, and they play to win, and they become very territorial. This is when things, can become very dangerous, and that level of possessiveness, hopefully it will pass with time, but sometimes it doesn't. And if you're feeling down the road, if you're in danger in any way, shape, or form, like, please do what you need to do in order to stay safe, because they can just be so incredibly unpredictable. They can even get remarried and have another family, and you would think that they would move on, but even with that, sometimes they still feel very possessive over their ex, and they don't want their ex to move on, and it's it's intense stuff. Jennifer, okay, yeah, I'm not sure if you're talking to me or somebody else's email problems. She said, maybe your email problem is due to your history and stance against narcissists. I think my issue is I have a bunch of emails all being forwarded to like one inbox, and I have my website is WordPress, and I don't even know, like, I don't even know if that matters, but like, I feel like a lot of those email boxes are being filled up, and so I'm not getting all the emails. And then when I send out an email, I'm just not sure if the email inboxes are set up. I keep thinking that they are set up properly, but then I get people telling me, hey, I emailed you and it bounced, or something weird happened, and then I'm like, back to square one because I don't know. Bear says he is going on vacation and hiking the Appalachian Trail for 2 weeks. There is healing power in the mountains. Yes, I completely agree with that. What an exciting adventure you're going on. 2 weeks, that's intense, man. So good for you. I'm glad. Have you seen the movie? What is it? With Cheryl Streep, Wild. She does that. She decides to go hike the Appalachian Trail. She went, I think it's the Appalachian Trail. She went for quite a while and was totally unprepared. And it was kind of her journey into finding herself again. It was a good movie, good book. Somebody had asked earlier too about hoovering and how long it lasts. And there is no time frame on that, unfortunately. Once they realize that you for sure mean it, that you are not going to respond, they do tend to eventually move on. But kind of keep in mind that they can come back. I mean, my mother was engaged, the first guy before my father that she was engaged to, I would say was most likely a narcissist, and he had told her after they'd gotten engaged and sent out the invitations and everything, and mind you, this is 50 something years ago. He told her at a party flat out that he had every intention of sleeping with whoever he wanted to, and that she needed to be okay with that. And my guess is he thought she would, I don't know, would I guess go along with it. I don't even know really what he was thinking by telling her that, but she called off the wedding the next day. So, and I don't think they really spoke after that. It's been 50 years. He recently, within like the past year or so, had contacted her through Facebook, and he has since married and has children and grandchildren and the whole nine. Had messaged her saying, wanting to chat and catch up on old times. And at first she was open to it, but then she was like, this isn't appropriate. He's married. Like, I don't want to be friends. This is just not appropriate. And so she ended up telling him like, hey, I'm not comfortable talking to you. And he had spun things to say, oh, well, my wife is totally okay with me having friends, like basically making it seem like she had the issue. And I was telling her, I'm like, Mom, no, like this, this is a Hoover, like he's not, maybe not trying to suck her back in, but he's definitely trying to suck her back into that pipeline that he can get all of this like attention and kind of whatnot from her. So yeah, she ended up going no contact. So yeah, they can come back at any time. I mean, I've had problematic people of all kinds of degrees come back in my life years later, out of the clear blue, when I would think, it's been like 10 years and this person's resurfacing. So if you can block, give yourself as much peace as you possibly can. Blocking, going no contact, changing your email, changing your phone number, changing your social media accounts. I know it's inconvenient, but sometimes it's worth it just to have that peace of mind that they're not going to be able to contact you. So Mala are there any attorneys that you can contact out there, or are there any domestic violence shelters that you could contact that can refer an attorney to you? Good for you, Salon. Salon says, my dad has totally turned down his aggression because I threatened him that if he steps out of line, I will not hesitate to call the police. Yeah. Good for you. And that's, drawing boundaries with a narcissist can be a really tricky thing to kind of figure out. If you're not afraid, or if you're not like concerned that they're actually going to just like seriously injure you, yeah, saying right out, I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm not going to be talked to like this. I'm not going to be treated like this. If you don't shape up, I'm going to call the police, or you're not welcome over here anymore. Like I can't. This is not okay. Like I don't care if you're family. I don't care if you're my child. I don't care if you're my parent. I don't care if you're my ex. I don't care. Like I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not going to put up with this. Google it says, do threats like that ever work? It seems like that would only fuel the chaotic fever that they love. And this is kind of what I was meaning with, like, it depends on the narcissist and it depends on like the degree. For some of them, yes, setting a boundary does work. For others, that can send them flying into a rage, and it can make them, homicidal. Like you know your situation best, and so you kind of need to take whatever advice that you get, either here or in support groups or what have you, and kind of tailor it accordingly. Because these people are very unpredictable, and even though there's a lot of similarities between them, they are all different. Google it says, I have little children, so I've been wondering how to approach that. I'm worried. There is a great book out there that we read for a book club a while back called Divorce Poison. And it talks about having a manipulative narcissist really in your life and how to handle that, especially when you do have children. It's a really great read, and I highly recommend everybody who's dealing with this or possibly going to be dealing with this to read this book. And it talks, there's some strategies that he talks about within this book. And one of them he talks about is basically kind of, and I know it might be really hard to do, but kind of giving them like giving them some small wins. So kind of stroking their ego a little bit, kind of just playing the game and trying to just get through until they're not necessarily that much of an active part of you or your children's life, you know? So there's just lots of strategies in that book. Yeah, and there's notes on my website on that book too if you're interested. ThriveAfterAbuse.com. Go to book club, and you can see my different notes. There's links to the different notes from the different books. It's also, I think, an important book because it talks a lot about parental alienation and what that looks like and how it happens and how you can prevent it from happening and how other family members, like other things that they can be on the lookout for. And it's the most thorough book I've ever read on the topic. Like I can't say enough like good things about this book. Scott asks, Dana, have you read the book, Why Is It All About You? And if so, what did you think about it? I don't think I have read that book, actually. I recently read Why Does He Do That? But I will check it out. Why Is It All About You? I will add that to the list. So, oh, that's interesting. Creep Central Broadcast asks, Dana, how do you balance what you share with a new prospect for friends, partner, etc.? Do you play dumb and vulnerable for a while? To me, I think those are two different questions, and I'm not 100% sure what you're getting at. But the first one, second one, do I ever play dumb and vulnerable? I never play dumb or vulnerable unless I feel like I'm in danger and need to play, I guess, dumb and vulnerable to get out of the situation. So, I dated a really scary guy when I was in high school, and getting out of that situation, I just made pretty much everything all my fault. And I was like, it's me, it's not you. I can't do this anymore. I just need to go. Didn't argue it, didn't blame him, because he was a scary dude. And he was maybe 19 and I was 16. And I have no doubt in my mind, if he hasn't killed somebody by now, I'm sure that he will. Like, he just was a really scary dude and very dangerous. And so I kind of felt like I needed to say that probably helped, but he still stalked me for years after that. So, had I come straight out and, blamed him for everything and tried to make him see his behavior, like, he would have completely flipped out. As far as what do I share with a new prospect, as far as like what I've gone through, that's been a learning curve. I used to be very open about it. I used to really kind of think, hey, this is not my shame. This is not my embarrassment to carry. I really wanted to talk about it, and I was very open with a lot of people about what had happened to me, and I found that it just didn't go well. Like, I felt like people either what I went through was so over the top and so wild that I felt like people were judging me, and people just didn't understand. And then I would get upset. If I used words like narcissist or sociopath, I felt like people would be like, oh yeah, right, like you're just a bitter ex, and which would make me like really upset, because it's like, no, what I went through was not a normal breakup. Like, this was like a Lifetime TV movie. It was so over the top and it was so awful. And so I think the lesson that I learned in all of that is, go slow. this is when you're dating again, take it slow. Like, people don't need to know your whole life story in the first few dates. And here's the other thing too, is if you do tell a person so much about you, and let's say after like the second or third date, they're like, oh, I don't know if the chemistry is really there, and they decide that they don't want to continue dating you, you might feel really, like, really awful. Like, oh no, I've scared them off, I've overshared. It's a terrible sinking feeling to feel like you might have run somebody off. So, I think you just, the first couple of dates, like, you just keep things light, you keep things surface. Same with meeting a new friend or meeting a new person in general. You just keep things light, and over time, like, over like a month or so, I would wait at least that. Then kind of slowly start talking about whatever you're comfortable with, but it's totally up to you. Like, people don't need to know every single detail. Some people take years before they really talk about what they went through. Okay, this is a great question. Elise asks, if I'm kind, can I trigger narcissistic behavior in people who are not necessarily a narcissist? I don't know if necessarily kind would do it, but sharing successes can. So if you've got something good going on in your life and you're like, hey, you know what, I just won the lottery, I just won 10 grand. Insecure people, or even like, hey, I'm in the best relationship, we're so happy, and the person that you're talking to is single, or or even if you're like, I'm so happy I'm single, and the person that you're talking to is unhappily married. These kinds of things, anybody can experience an ego injury and have kind of an envious or jealous response. Most people, and you can feel, I think we've all experienced that, where you're like, oh man, I wish that was me. Like, you just feel maybe a little bit envious. To a certain extent, that's a normal human emotion. But when it becomes problematic is if a person does a 180 and then they start like maliciously trying to destroy you. That's not normal behavior. So, it just, so much of it is knowing kind of who is a friend and who is safe, I guess, and who isn't. Because a friend, people that are really in your corner, they're going to be excited for your successes. And it shouldn't trigger like a narcissistic injury in them to where they become resentful and bitter and hateful and all of that. So just pay attention. Pay attention to how people respond when you're doing well. That'll tell you a lot. Okay. Mala, interesting question. She says, is it important to be an empath or codependent to attract a narcissist? Yes and no. So narcissists, they use, abuse, exploit, mainly use, abuse, exploit, or neglect other people in order to get their self-esteem needs met. And they often do this by targeting people that are easy prey. Empaths, codependent kind of people that tend to be kind and compassionate and caring and give second and 20-second chances, and people that tend to put others ahead of themselves. These kinds of people tend to be targeted. However, not everybody like that is. Anybody can be targeted by a narcissist because they target people for supply. They use, abuse, exploit them, and they use, abuse, and exploit them in many different ways, right? They can do it sexually or financially or just for attention. There's any number of things that they're going for. If they've targeted a person as a source of supply, then any of us could be sources of supply. And the way that they go about extracting that supply from somebody is that they exploit a person's vulnerabilities. And since we're all human, we all have vulnerabilities. It's part of being human. And we wouldn't want, we will always have vulnerabilities. And our vulnerabilities will change throughout our life. So what a person's vulnerabilities are when they're 20 is going to be different when they're 40, different when they're 60, and so on. You know, so what's most important about that is boundaries, is having a sense of healthy boundaries, and really learning to pay attention to what problematic behavior, I guess learning what problematic behavior is, and then getting in tune enough with your emotions to where you know how problematic behavior feels. So when you start experiencing it, you're like, oh, okay, this is not good, and I need to distance myself. This stuff is not taught. So a lot of people will talk about, okay, narcissists always target codependents, and codependents always come from some sort of home where they were raised by a parent that is a narcissist or a parent that was codependent. There's probably a lot of truth in that, but that's only one way that a person kind of can be set up to have a skewed perception of like what's healthy and unhealthy behavior. If a person's vulnerable, so let's say here's a really common example. Let's say a person has a wonderful childhood and they have a wonderful marriage, they have this wonderful life, and then when they're 65, their spouse dies suddenly of a heart attack, and now they're alone for the first time ever, and they're lonely, they're scared, they're grieving, they're incredibly vulnerable, and they meet this amazing stranger at, I don't know, at the hardware store or online dating. Online dating is full of con artists. And this person's telling them everything they want to hear, and it feels so good to have, here's this handsome or, beautiful stranger, and they're paying all of this attention, and it's really filling that bucket, that void in that person's life that was left when their spouse died. And so that's, the next thing this person knows, they get sucked into this relationship, and then their life savings are drained. This happens all the time. So it's whatever vulnerability a person might have at a certain age. And vulnerabilities can run the spectrum. I mean, a person, like I was just mentioning, they could be incredibly lonely. They could be, they could be a celebrity and feel also very alone. I think I see a lot of this like in Hollywood when I look at these different, matches between certain stars. I'm like, ooh, that seems really like this person was targeted because they have money. So, they have a lot of money and then they're a target. Or if a person doesn't have a lot of money, they're a target. If a person has children, they might be a target. If a person doesn't have children, they might be a target. So there's any number of reasons that a person might be targeted, and a narcissistic person can go about exploiting that in any number of ways. Elena asks, should I confront the narcissist with proof against him or just disappear? What is wiser to do? Thanks. If it was me, I would just disappear because he doesn't care. I guess it depends on what proof it is. Like if it's proof that you're planning on going to court with or what have you, and you feel the main core of everything that I say always hinges around do what you need to do in order to stay safe and sane. Again, if any of my advice at any given time is going to possibly ever put you in danger, do not do it. And you know the situation best for sure. So if you have proof against him and you want to confront him as an attempt to get closure, you will not get that. He will continue to lie, he'll blame you, he'll fly off the handle, he could become dangerous. What I have encouraged people to do in the past is, because closure is not possible with a narcissist, you're dealing with a pathological liar and a person that's just like profoundly dysfunctional. What I've encouraged people to do in the past is to write take all of that, make a copy of it if you want, make a copy of all this proof, write a letter that is all about, you did this to me, and I know this, and I deserve better, and you just spill your guts onto this paper. And then take pictures, take whatever is sentimental that you're wanting to get rid of that was his, or things that you guys, things that remind you of him or what have you. And then have some friends over, people that are in your support system, and have a burning party. And use this as this is a celebration. This is a celebration of freedom. This is a celebration of transition into this next stage in your life. And make it a good thing. And make that your closure. I hope that helps. Mala says, Dana, why do you think his ex-wife disappearing on him affected him so much? Well, it sounds like in your situation, this guy he probably was always like this, frankly, and it sounds like she saw that early on and walked away. So I don't know if, and he might be affected, and again, I don't know details, but my guess would be is he's affected by this because in a way she won. Like she was able to, she just pieced out, like she was done and was able to get away from him, and he lost that power and control. Remember, it's all about power and control. All about power and control. That's what they use. They need to get and keep power and control in order to use, abuse, and exploit other people in order to get their needs met. That's what it's all about. That's a great question, Jessica. She asks, what's the difference between a pathological liar, a habitual liar, and a compulsive liar? To me, it's kind of all saying the same thing. And pathological, compulsive liar is seemingly like somebody who can't stop themselves from lying. Habitual liar is somebody who has a habit of lying, and a pathological liar means that they lie to such a problematic extent that it's like it's pathological. To me, it's different names for this, pretty much the same behavior. It's somebody who lies when the truth would work better for them. Like they lie because it's about power and control. They're telling lies because it's fun. They're not telling lies, like normal people tell lies in order to escape consequences or because they're not comfortable with the truth. Like there's generally a reason somebody's lying. And pathological, people that have a pattern of like chronically lying, especially if it's pathological, they lie for fun, they lie because they can, they lie because to escape consequences, they lie for like a multitude of reasons. So it's not normal, what drives them is not normal lying, normal reasons. Helene says, do you think exposing them makes them not Hoover us? I don't know. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. Like in my situations, again, I was several hours away from the first guy when I found everything out, and then I moved several hours away and stayed away. And then the second guy, thankfully, had moved 26 hours away from me because he ended things with me, went back to his wife, and then was trying to get me to go. It was just freaking a circus. So I had flat out confronted both of them and was like, I know what you did. I mean, with the first guy, when I began like when I stumbled across his double life and I began like unraveling everything, I began making copies of everything. Like I had gone into his Facebook. I mean, I had gotten into all of his accounts and was like, this guy owes me money. Like this guy is a con artist. Like this is none of whatever I fell into. This was not a relationship that went south. Like this guy had me pegged from the get. So I went in self-defense mode and began making copies of everything within like hours of finding everything out, and had totally told him, like, you know, this is what I have on you. You owe me money. This is how this is gonna go down. And if you don't do this, then I'm letting everybody know. This is before I knew about narcissists or sociopaths. It didn't dawn on me that he could be dangerous. I had a feeling that I was in danger because he did such a 180, but I didn't connect that at the time. So, you know, but with both of them, I was very, very upfront of like, I'm totally onto you. You know, you're not who I thought you were, and stay out of my life. I was just very matter of fact. So both of them, once they realized that I was on to them, like the gig was up, they moved on. But you know, at the same time, frankly, I don't really know if they've moved on, because I've changed my number, I've changed my address, I've changed my last name, I've blocked all of their emails, you know, I've changed all my social media accounts. So I don't know. For all I know, they could be sending me emails every single day. I have no idea. I would really seriously treat it like, it's a lot like removing a bee's nest that's been built up in like your basement. You know, you want to have a plan, because you don't want to just kick it and then be like, oh, okay, now what? Because that's what it is. Like if you're calling them out on stuff, it's a lot like kicking a bee's nest. So you need to have some sort of exit strategy. You need to be able to prepare yourself. I highly don't recommend ever doing that if you can avoid it, because it just doesn't, there's no point, and it doesn't end well. You know, just always err on the side of caution with whatever you do. Yeah, Lucy says, Narc Wellness and Katie and I agree that, and then the comment scrolled, that they will always do things you would never dream of doing. They have no conscience. Yes, that is, I think, the main takeaway. You are truly, and it's so hard for normal, decent people to wrap our minds around this. Like, you're dealing with a person, this is harsh, but it's important that you guys really fully see this. They don't love you, they don't like you, they don't care. They would most likely do whatever they're gonna do and not even miss a beat. Like, and that's a really hard thing for us to understand, what kind of person we're dealing with, because we have empathy, we have remorse, you know, even if things end poorly, like, it's hard for us to get to the place where we would just be so cold and calloused and cruel. And it's just hard for us to understand that. But please understand, when you're dealing with a narcissist, they do not bond to other people like we do. They do not attach. They do not care. It is truly, truly, truly all about them all of the time. Suzanne says, all of the reading I see tells us to go no contact. If I feel like I can ignore his attempts at power and control, is it possible to stay in the home until the divorce is over? What would you do? It so depends. It so depends on, because with a narcissist, you know, you've got like kind of mild, moderate, severe. And it depends on where on that spectrum kind of he is. So if he's ever had a history of violence, if you've ever felt threatened, if you've ever felt, you know, in danger, I would be out the door ASAP. Frankly, I would recommend that you get out of there ASAP. Even if, like, even if, you know, it was a normal divorce with a normal human being, it's going to be tense, it's going to be stressful, that's a hard way to live. And going through a divorce, being under the same roof, oh my goodness, like, my ex-husband and I, we had a really great, we were more friends than husband and wife, and we finally agreed to divorce because of that. Our divorce was done over a bottle of wine and like on the back of a napkin. And we had a lot of assets. And it was very amicable. It was we hugged. Like, it was a very sad ending to a friendship. And even then, being under the same roof for a few weeks until I could leave was awful. Awful. It's so, the tension, the tears, the kind of just all of it. I just don't encourage that. I would really encourage you to get into an environment that will bring you some level of peace. It's just, it's not worth the stress. And you can ignore his attempts at power and control, but I guarantee you can't anticipate all of them. These are very tricky people, and they undermine in all kinds of ways. So what you see and what you can actually steer clear of and ignore may not be everything that he's actually up to. So I would, at a minimum, I would find a plan B, just in case things do get to that level of like, I gotta get out of here. That way you haven't painted yourself into a corner. Oh my goodness. Google it. Says, I exposed my wife as being borderline and a narcissist. She went on a mean smear campaign, told all her friends and family that I raped her. Wow. I mean, I'm sorry that you went through that, because that's like the worst thing that a guy could be accused of. But at the same time, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they play to win. They play to win, and they go about it no holds barred. Like, nothing is off the table. So that's the kind of stuff that you're dealing with, and it can destroy a person. It can destroy a person's life. Let's see. Dora says, "Hi Dana, I'm here." Hi. And oh, I meant to address this earlier. Jill had asked about getting back into the Facebook group. I have not been, I don't know what's going on with that. There's a couple things with the Facebook group. I have not been in the Facebook group in probably about a week. That's not how, I don't like to go that long without being in there. I just have had everything with my book, and I've been still packing and moving and getting over pneumonia and like all of this stuff. So I have not been in there. So I need to get back in there, and I need to see what's going on and kind of handle some stuff. So I will look into it. I will be in there tomorrow for sure. Google it. Says, yep, she can never lose. I've never heard her say I'm sorry or forgive me or anything after 5 affairs, 4 of which were in the last year. She's broken up 4 marriages now. Now that's awful, and that's so par for the course. Like, the very overt narcissists, they will not say that they're sorry. Like, in their mind, they always feel justified and entitled, and it's always somebody else's fault, and there's just nothing there. It's just all about whatever they want. This is a sign, that this is not the kind of woman that you want or need in your life. And that's how I would try to reframe that awful behavior. Because that's not workable. If there's not trust there, then there's nothing. There's nothing. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter how much we might love them. It doesn't matter how sorry we feel for them. It doesn't matter how much we want them to change. If that core level of trust, let me add on to that, trust and dignity and respect are not there, then there's nothing. Like, there's nothing there. And we have to drive on. Oh boy, Diana was saying that there's some issues in the Facebook group. Yeah, it is huge. That group is huge. When I took a break last week, it was, I think, right around 39,000 people. I don't know. I was just been a mess. There's a lot I need to get in there and get a handle on. And the admins, the admins there can only do so much because that group is so active, and we can't read every single post. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I should do a video in the group and maybe on YouTube too, addressing that and seeing if anybody has any ideas. I've tried talking to other people that run large groups to see how they handle it, and I think the consensus is to basically get more admins, and maybe that's the route that I go. I don't know. I struggle with, I want the group to feel safe. I don't want the admins, or myself, of course, too, because I'm an admin. I don't want us to feel like, I don't want us to police people. I don't want people to feel like they have to walk on eggshells, or they're going to be if they take a step out of the line, then they're thrown out. That's not what I'm going for. So it can be a fine line. It's so difficult because things there, posts can get out of hand, and if an admin's not, even if an admin's there, then people get all upset because they're like, how come you deleted this post, or how come you turned off comments, and then it gets so wild so quickly over there. It's difficult. And of course, if you're an admin, people only see their side of it. They don't see if you post something, if they post something that's kind of inflammatory, and I get it because I've been on the other side of this. I had belonged to support groups, and I had unintentionally said provoking or inflammatory or insensitive things, thinking this is just me telling it how it is. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, and I didn't get it then, but now being on the other side of it, I totally get it. Because if somebody says a post like that, thinking that they're giving tough love, or thinking that they're talking about, what, I don't know, whatever, politics or what have you, and then it just turns into a total, drama fest, and then there's always, and then it just stirs the pot like nobody's business. It's awful. So Angela says, I only realized I was in a narcissistic relationship after it was over, but I still have low self-esteem and self-doubt. How can I manage these negative feelings? Oh, that is such a great question, and it's such a common question. I think it's something that we've all struggled, everything that you said is something that I think we've all struggled with. Most people in general don't realize that they're in a problematic situation until they're on the other side of it. Whether it's an abusive relationship, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's alcoholism, or being in a cult. I mean, there's any type of problematic behavior that a person is involved in, we often don't see it for what it is until, hindsight's always 20/20. So, so I guess kind of realize that you're not alone in that. It's very uncommon for people to be in a problematic situation and think to themselves, I think this is really problematic. I bet I'm in a cult, right? Or I think I'm in an abusive relationship. Most people don't, if they have those realizations, they tend to leave. But unfortunately, it takes experiencing really problematic behavior for a long period of time until they can't handle it anymore. And then they're like, something's got to give. I can't live like this. So things have to get really extreme in order for us to register, this is indeed a problem. As far as the resulting low self-esteem and self-doubt, okay, so those, I think, if we address them individually. So let me go with the self-doubt one first. It is very common and very appropriate, actually, I think, when a person is in a relationship with an abusive person, with a narcissist, anybody that's you know, to me, these are kind of catch-all terms. Like, that's a narcissist or that's abusive. When a person's in a relationship like this and they've experienced this person generally coming across as really likable and they're maybe even their ideal partner, and then over time they start seeing, oh my goodness, like this person's personality is shifting and they're not what I thought they were at all, and then they become verbally abusive and emotionally abusive and things psychologically abusive, and things just start to get further and further, like more and more problematic. That is such extreme, it's so wild to experience something like that, and it's very common for a person to get out of that and then be terrified to date again, or to even make friends with new people again, or sometimes even to leave their house because they don't know who they can trust. They're not sure. They're terrified. They're like, I don't want to be hurt like that again. And I get it. I was there too. And it's scary. It's scary stuff. So if that's the kind of self-doubt that you're talking about, I guess first off, realize that that's normal. And I like to look at it now as what it is it's part of your awakening. It's part of you realizing that there are, in fact, some really bad people in the world, you know, that have some really problematic behavior, and that problematic behavior comes across in ways that we didn't realize. You know, we all like to think that we'd be able to spot a problematic person. We all like to think we'd be able to see an abusive person. You know, that they're the bad guy, like that they're a guy, I guess, first of all, that they're like a guy in a black trench coat with a, you know, the evil mustache and the cackling laugh, or the evil woman who's ugly and looks like the witch, and she looks problematic, right? Or he looks problematic. And when we encounter people that don't come across like that, that might come across as really charming and really fun and really funny, and then their personality starts to change, it doesn't match up with our image in our mind of what problematic people look like or how they act. And that can really mess with a person's head. So it's a big awakening. Like, that's a huge awakening for people to realize, oh, there's bad people out there and they can look like anybody. And they can be nice. They can be charming. They're oftentimes very charming and very likable. And so understandably people are like, oh no, well then how do I know who to avoid? And so what I see happen a lot, I did it myself, is people start linking up, they start what I call it kind of learning the wrong lessons. This is a very common thing. So whenever we experience pain, our brain instantly is looking for what is different, what caused us this pain, in order for us to stay, so it can learn the lesson, so it can keep us safe next time, so we can avoid that from happening again next time. When we encounter people, so like when we're a child, right, we touch a hot stove, we learn very quickly that stove is hot. Hot stove equals pain, don't touch the hot stove. When we're older and we encounter problematic people, our brain, because it's not such a direct cause and effect as to what caused us pain, our brain might link up all kinds of incorrect cause and effect. It might tell us, oh, well, I'm never going to date a mechanic again, or I'm never going to date a waitress again, or I'm never going to meet people online again, or I'm never going to date a redhead again, or I'm never going to date a Scorpio again, or I'm never going to date, I don't know, a Sicilian again, or I'm never going to date an older man or a younger woman, or, do you see what I'm saying? There's all different kinds of things that we link up. What becomes problematic with this is because we're not linking up the correct cause and effect, the odds of us getting burned again are really high. And then if this keeps happening to a person, then because they can't their brain is not able to figure out how to keep itself safe, how to keep us safe, then they might jump to, I must just be cursed. I must just attract these people. I don't know what it is about me. I like, you know, I give off some sort of scent that narcissists just flock to. It's really easy to feel like that. I felt like that for quite a while myself. And so that self-doubt tends to settle down once your brain starts linking up the correct cause and the correct effect. So once you realize that problematic people are the problem, and that problematic people, they can be male or female, they can be young or old, they can be any sexual orientation, they can be, any profession, they can be, tall or thin or, fat or skinny, they can, anything, any religion, any nationality, any income level, any education level, you name it. They can be your neighbor, a parent, a child, a significant other, somebody that you volunteer with. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but I'm just saying that they are out there. And so if we can realize, if we can see the problematic behavior for what it is, instead of the package that it's wrapped in, then that's how you keep yourself safe. And so once you realize, okay, I know what problematic behavior is now, and I know how it feels. I know how I feel when something's off. I know how I feel when somebody is being hurtful or saying, trying to kind of grind me down. And the more you learn about covert, especially covert and overt abuse and the different forms it takes, and in the 7 main ways that abusive people going about abusing people, there's verbal abuse and emotional and psychological and financial and sexual and physical and spiritual, and how that and all of those ways can be done in both overt or covert ways. And so once you realize, okay, these are the ways that this can be done, then it'll fill in so many of those blanks for you, and so much more is going to make sense. Whereas before, if we don't know what's going on, all we know is we don't realize that it's a problem until after the fact. So that's a big part of it, realizing how problematic behavior goes down. The other part of that has to do with taking things slow, realizing that you are in charge of how fast or slow a friendship or relationship or what have you progresses. And that at any given time, if things aren't okay for you, that you can slow things down even further. You are in charge. Because one of the key things that problematic people tend to do is they tend to create this whirlwind situation where very quickly you find yourself, oh my gosh, this person's my new BFF and I've known them for a week. Oh my gosh, I'm so in love with this new person. I met them 3 weeks ago. Oh my gosh, I want to go into business with this, this person. They're everything I've ever wanted, and we hardly know them. So much of kind of bypassing problematic behavior has to do with taking things slow and then realizing that you're in charge and responding in whatever way feels okay. So if you want to not see them again, that's okay. So those are some big ways that you can go about keeping yourself safe. And once you start realizing, because all of these things take practice, the odds are you will encounter more problematic people in your life. They are out there, and that's okay. You can handle this. You really can. When they do cross your path, you're going to be that much more aware with every single time you cross paths with one. And you're just gonna distance yourself when you see their behavior. Generally, people tend to see it within the first 90 days or so of knowing a person. Like you're gonna start most of them don't hide it that well. Like there's certain things that they might say that don't add up. So much of it is just really getting in tune with how you feel. So you're not glossing over problematic stuff. So, okay, so that's self-doubt. So how do you get rid of self-doubt is learn the right lessons, start learning to trust your judgment. Trusting your judgment comes from learning the right lessons, and it comes from applying what you've learned, in short. And self-esteem, really comes from proving to yourself that you can do something. So, narcissists are notorious for targeting a person's vulnerabilities and then grinding that down. Whether it's like your weight or your education or your other aspects of your physical appearance or your parenting or, kind of what have you. But I think it's important to realize that this person wasn't telling you the truth. That they were telling you things with the intention of grinding you down. So don't accept. I know it's easier said than done, but to realize, no, this person was filling my head with nonsense and lies, and I accept none of that. That's their pathology talking. Like, this isn't my reality. I accept none of this. I send it back to them. Like, I accept none of this. This is not me. This is not my reality. So, and then working towards proving to yourself that you are capable, that you are competent, that you are good enough, that there are things about you that are likable and lovable, and that you are worthy. And it can feel like an uphill climb, like rebuilding that self-esteem. Bear was talking about his hike that he's planning on going through the Appalachian Trail. That's a big thing. I mean, that's an extreme thing, but like that's a great example of building self-esteem, or just setting a goal and achieving it, no matter how big or how small, can really go a long ways as far as like rebuilding self-esteem. Also, practicing self-talk. This might sound really hippie woo-woo, but it does work. There's a book out there called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, and she talks quite a bit about, it's actually the whole book is about healing your life and really kind of healing the relationship you have with yourself. And so self-talk, like looking in the mirror and picking out different things that you like about yourself. We all have issues with our bodies. We all do. We all have issues with many things in our life. And that's just that's never going to go away. That's just part of it. And that's, it is what it is. But you can still love yourself and along the way, and you can practice doing that. You can practice doing that right now. So another thing that I did that was very, very helpful is I took some index cards and I wrote down a bunch of affirmations, because I really felt like I was in a battle that I needed to reclaim my power and control, and that I wasn't going to let them win. Like, I don't know, it really lit a fire under me. Like, I just became very, very determined, like, I am not going to let this destroy me. And so I was pulling out all the stops. Like, I was listening to Tony Robbins. I was listening to all kinds of like affirmation videos. I was, reading affirmations. So some of the affirmations that I would write down, I need to go find those cards. I still have them. Things like, I am worthy, like I am a good person. There is a lot about me that is lovable. I am a good friend. What were some more? Oh, I had other ones that were motivating too. One that says forward motion. I think one that says don't look back, only look forward. the best revenge is a good life was my mantra for a long time. These kinds of things helped me to stay grounded and then helped me to move forward into that next chapter in my life, into what I wanted it to be, and like, and who I wanted to be, you know? And whenever I started feeling really upset and angry and down about what had happened, I would just remind myself, Dana, it had to hurt this much in order for you to leave. And it had to hurt this much because it's not for you. Hallelujah, it's not for you. So I would try to reframe my understanding of that pain to make it work for me. Like, thank you, God, thank you that this hurts so much because you are reminding me that this is not for me. Hallelujah. So it's a struggle. But yeah, vision board, Jill, absolutely. Those are very powerful. You know, and you can do vision boards. So as a side note, so when I was working at the domestic violence shelter, we did vision boards one night as like one of our projects that we were doing, and quite a few of the women there became very tearful and upset, and they were like, they had no vision of the future. I mean, granted, they were fresh out, like a day or two out of this awful situation, and I think when a person is so fresh out, doing a vision board of like their highest and best life, right? Of like, you want to take a trip to Bali and you want all of it, and that stuff might feel so far away that it can become really discouraging. So a way to still use that concept, because a vision board can be very powerful, is to think of, if that's overwhelming and depressing, to think about your ideal life when your life is in pieces, to think about it in terms of what would you like in this next chapter. So something that's more obtainable. And you may even want to find pictures that aren't of necessarily of stuff, but more of emotions that you want to feel. So for example, one of the pictures on my vision board is a lady at a dinner party and there's this food around. And so for me, that was the emotion of like connectedness and good friends, and the lady's smiling, and it's this enjoyment of connection with other people. You know, that's obtainable. Like that kind of stuff is obtainable. Like you can tap into that emotion of connection, of peace, of calm, of courage, of strength, of self-love, of these. You can tap into that now. And so I think that might be a good in-between, or at least something to consider if you're making a vision board. Judah is saying he uses the Bible to keep narcissists out of his life. You know, I don't identify as being Christian, but I definitely consider myself having a deep spiritual faith, and I leaned very heavily on that during all of this. And I found, again, even though I don't identify as being Christian, I found a lot of comfort in Joyce Meyer and Joel Osteen and Eckhart Tolle. I think those were the three main ones I was listening to at that time, just because they had so much faith, especially Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyer. They had so much faith that I guess it just gave me the assurance that I could get through this. So, you know, it's whatever gives you peace and comfort at this point, and that reminds you that this too shall pass. This really, really will. This is a major event that happened in your life, but many of your best days are still ahead of you. You know, this isn't going to be the defining moment of your life. It can be, but you don't have to let it be. You know, you can make this into whatever you want frankly. Okay. People are talking about pets, and pets are so wonderful for recovering, and they really can be. Yeah, Salon says, I'm starting to find great wisdom in Buddhist teachings. If you're into that, there's a gal that I came across on YouTube a few years ago who I absolutely adore. I would love to interview her. She is a Buddhist nun, and her name is, her name is Mindy, and her channel is called The Enthusiastic Buddhist. And she is just so peaceful and does such a great job at breaking down Buddhist teachings. It's interesting, even if you're not Buddhist. Like it's just interesting. So you might want to check out her channel. Again, it's called The Enthusiastic Buddhist. Katie says, this too shall pass kind of drives me into nihilism. I struggled with that as well. And I kind of struggled with that, frankly, with Buddhism as well. But in many ways, I think if you can view it in terms of like just keeping perspective instead of like developing apathy, then you're good. So, you know, life is, it's more than a journey, it's a wild ride. And every generation has something. I mean, we're going through this, but you know, everybody's got something. And I guess for me, realizing what it was for me, coming across my grandmother's book, and it was her story of her relationship with my grandfather, who was a narcissist, and reading her story all these years later, you know, like 60, 70 years later, was so, it just made me realize like my life is a story, and it's a story that I can live in chapters, and I get to decide when the next chapter starts and when the next chapter stops. And her story is, she was the nicest woman. Like, I don't know how she managed to stay such a kind and compassionate and loving person after everything he put her through, but she did. And I found so much strength in her strength and realized that I had the power to decide how this was going to end for me. And if I was gonna, and I decided, I'm going to be using this for my highest and greatest good and for the highest and greatest good of others. That's how I'm going to win. Like, I'm not gonna let this darkness sink me. I'm not going to become a bitter and hateful person. Because it can feel like you're in this battle of, I don't want to become like them. I don't want to sink into this quicksand that is all of this heaviness and this misery and ridiculousness. Like, I don't want that. And making a concerted effort to be like, I will not be that. That will not be me. Damn it. And then just digging my heels in. There were days where I was so overwhelmed with every emotion. I mean, fear. I had no money. I had no job. I was alone. I had just moved to Michigan and didn't know anybody. Didn't know where the grocery store was. We had just signed a lease when Steve up and left me, and I had so much stuff going on, and I could feel myself getting so consumed with all of my stuff, and I felt like this is gonna sink me. Like this has the potential to just truly sink me. And I would do little things as my way of just staking my claim. Like, no, this is not going to sink me. I had a friend who was going through a divorce at the time. I would send him letters, emails, text, whatever I was feeling really, really down, I would go send him a text to just let him know, hey, I'm sending light and love your way. Hey, I'm thinking about you. You're a great dad, you can do this. And just sending just that little like a flicker of positivity helped me tremendously, and I think it helped him tremendously too. It was like we were like this lifeline for each other. But doing a good deed, there's so much that really just can really lift you up. I mean, it's such a win-win. Like, it helps the person that you're helping, and then it helps you. So, yeah. Mala had asked about, can a narcissistic relationship cause you to have social anxiety? Yes, very much so. And that's very common. Depression, anxiety, insomnia, weight gain, weight loss, nightmares, night terrors, you know, pretty drastic changes in personality, feeling very guarded or paranoid, having this kind of distrust of others, wanting to isolate. All of this is very, very normal. It's all part of, PTSD type symptoms that people normally develop for after these relationships. Most people, these symptoms do tend to settle down with time, but sometimes, depending on how long you've been out, sometimes they are there. I still have some symptoms that are there, and I look at it as you learn to endure it. You learn to endure it. And, it's okay. I know how to keep myself safe now. And so when my brain, I'm very hypervigilant. If you've ever seen me, I was gonna say not even, like, watch a scary movie or, I am the jumpiest person you will ever meet. People, and I can laugh about it now, but there are times where it's not funny, but like, I had, at my old job, I had the secretary, who's a friend of mine, was joking around on Halloween, and they had this thing going around the office where they would, people, I forget what it was called, something like, I don't even know, boo something or other. There was like this game that people were playing, and the whole thing was like, you scare somebody, and then they have to scare somebody, and then it's just this circle till everybody's been scared. I didn't realize this was going on. And she came up behind me while I was working, so I was completely focused on what I was doing, and she had a Michael Myers mask on, and I turned around, and frankly, the mask didn't even scare me. It was the fact that she was right there. I began screaming and cussing, and I could not stop. It just sent me into orbit, and she's a friend of mine, and I absolutely lost it. I mean, I was close to crying. It was bad. And I know she didn't mean for me to have that kind of response, but I still have definitely a startle response, and I probably always will. And so, you learn to endure it. And hopefully you can kind of be kind and compassionate to yourself along the way. So, Synth, thank you. Sends 2, is that pounds? I think that's pounds. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It says, hi, Dana. So let's see. Okay, Kevin, thank you. That's a really great point too. Kevin says, he says his hair started falling out when he met his abuser. Yep, the body, oh, you're so right. He says the body knows. The body does know. And there are so many physical symptoms. That book that I was just talking about earlier, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, she talks a lot about the mind-body kind of spirit connection and how emotional disease manifests in physical ways. There's a whole chapter on there that she correlates different cause and effect with emotional and physical symptoms. I don't know necessarily how true a lot of that is, but I will tell you in my experience as a nurse, and working in a domestic violence shelter, there's a huge correlation. I have seen people develop. There was one lady I worked with who was so, her mental anguish was so great at her situation. She knew she needed to leave. She didn't want to leave. You know, she was alone. She wasn't from this country. She was a very bad. She began pulling her hair out, and as a nervous coping mechanism, and had just patches of hair. You know, when children go through trauma and abuse, it's very common for them to start regressing and to start talking baby talk, or to start, having accidents in the middle of the night or at school. You know, people develop. It's so funny that our bodies, if our brain can't effectively process what's going on, it's going to come out in other ways. There was a great, and addiction can be another one. So people tend to numb out. You know, they start drinking, they start smoking a lot of marijuana, they might take up a lot harder drugs. They might shopping, eating, spending money, gambling, anything to kind of numb out from their reality. Watching TV, working, you know, all kinds of things. Yeah, that emotional pain, yes, migraines, thank you, true seeker, migraines, digestive issues, I think that's really, really common. You know, it's going to come out in ways that we feel that it's okay for us to express that. It doesn't go away. And so I think when we're addressing these things, we tend to address these issues from like the top down instead of the bottom up. What I mean by that is we're like, oh, okay, we have issues with sleeping, and then we take a pill to help, or something to help us get to sleep. But the real issue isn't necessarily insomnia. There might be other emotional things at play. Maybe we're incredibly stressed out. Maybe, you know, like there's a lot of different reasons as to why we're going through what we're going through. So it's important for us to pay attention to our body and to realize that these are all signs that there is an imbalance somewhere, and to not get so frustrated with ourselves for being like, why am I so tired? You know, what is my problem? Like, why do I sleep 10 hours a night and then I wake up and I'm still tired? Or why can't I go to bed? Why can't I lose weight? How did I gain all this weight? And we get so upset with ourselves, but it's like our body's way of trying to get our attention to say, hey, there's things that are out of alignment here that you need to address. And yeah, having a narcissist in your life, having a narcissist in your life, having a toxic person in your life is going to make you feel toxic. That's kind of what it boils down to. And it's sort of like walking through life with like a nail in your foot. You know, like, yeah, you can get through life with a nail in your foot, but it's going to cause all kinds of issues, and it's just going to be uncomfortable, and there's going to be infection, and, you know, like, the more toxic people that we get out of our lives, the more people we can get out of our lives that cause us pain, the better off we are. And whatever that might mean, you know, different people might need to go no contact. Some people might need to go low contact, which is kind of like bare minimum contact. Some people, you know, like, it's whatever you need to do in order to take care of yourself. Yeah, right now, the most important thing is to be good to yourself. That might sound so, I don't know, trivial, but it is so helpful in so many different ways. And probably perhaps the largest way is once you start getting in tune with what it feels like to feel good, you're not going to want to feel anything less than that. There's a lot of power in just reconnecting with what makes you feel good. If nobody else was looking, what makes you feel good? Maybe it's watching cartoons. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's dancing around the house to Britney Spears. I don't know. I'm just making things up. Maybe it's, you know, playing with your dog. Maybe it's, you know, one of my favorite things, this always puts me in a good mood, and I don't know why, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something naughty, and I'm totally not, is I love having breakfast for dinner. Like, that feels like such a small, like, I don't know, little like win. But it puts me in the best mood. It's so much fun. I think it's because we used to do that when I was a kid every now and again, and it just seemed like so much fun. But, you know, what makes you feel good? Okay, and Shara, so Shara just said, I can't wait to feel good. And here's the thing with that is, don't wait. Don't wait until you're healed to then start to feel good. It actually works in the reverse. If you start feeling good now, that's how it's going to lead to you being healed. It sounds very counterintuitive, because it's sort of like, I don't feel good right now. My whole life is blown to pieces. I don't feel good. I'm going to wait until I heal and then I'll feel good. And it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. You can start feeling good now. That's the good news, is you can start feeling good now. And you can start feeling good even if you don't feel like you want to feel good. Because pain has a way of doing that. It can be so all-encompassing that, and a lot of it's our brain. Our brain is like, I need to focus on what happened. This is serious stuff. This is all of my energy, all of the brain's energy needs to go towards figuring this out and dwelling on it and stewing on it in order for you to learn the lessons, in order for you to keep yourself safe next time. The problem with this is it can become very rigid thinking. This is how people become like old and bitter, right? Is they stay stuck in that. And it's easy and understandable to stay stuck there. And I'm not saying that anger is necessarily a bad thing. A lot of times it's a very good thing. It's a part of healing. But realizing that you can move forward, you can experience a wide range of emotions, a wide range of positive emotions starting now. And it comes from practice that. Practice taking time for gratitude for the little things. And deciding this is your way, this is you making the declaration that you're going to use this for your highest and greatest good, that you're not going to let this sink you. Like, you have to start swimming even if you don't feel like swimming. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Yes, Diana says, don't let anyone steal your joy. Yep, that's exactly what it is. You make that declaration of, I'm not going to let them steal my joy. And then immediately finding something to be joyful for. I'm a huge fan of gratitude. So saying little things to yourself. I am so thankful and grateful for, right now it's raining out. Oh, I'm so thankful and grateful for the rain. I love listening to it. It's so relaxing and peaceful. If it's a blue sky, I am so thankful and grateful for a blue sky. And it's beautiful. It's amazing when you start looking around and being thankful and grateful for the little things, how much peace that brings. Being thankful and grateful for having hot, clean, running water, or electricity, or the health that you do have, or, you know, if you have some food in your fridge, or some money in your bank account, or you know, there's so many things. For me, I really felt, even though I was saying earlier, I don't consider myself Christian or even really religious, I really felt like I was in a spiritual battle. I mean, it really felt kind of like the forces of good against the forces of darkness. And the way that I felt that I needed to move past the forces of darkness of all of this was to bring as much light to it as possible. And I was just throwing everything I had at this. You know, when I painted this butterfly, I bought the biggest canvas they had at Michael's, and I painted that with my hands one night. And it was a reminder to me of transform and fly. Like, you can do this. You know, I'm a big fan of too, like putting these reminders. You know, I've got my little Buddha board 2.0 over here. Reminders all over your house. You know, and it's like climbing a mountain. Like you just take it a step at a time. Like, I'm thankful and grateful for XYZ. I am thankful and grateful for my dog. I'm thankful and grateful that I have a hairbrush. I'm thankful and grateful that I have hair to brush. I am thankful and grateful that I have a toothbrush. I am thankful and grateful that I have toothpaste. Thankful and grateful that I have teeth. And you focus small and you just keep going. And then once you kind of can get that light in that darkness, that light will start to grow. It really does help. Yeah. Oh, Larry, yeah. Larry's saying, I was married for 24 years. I have, oh my goodness, 6 kids. Been divorced 3 years. My ex-wife has 34 years and 12 steps, along with a master's and a PhD in marriage and family, I'm guessing counseling. Being a covert narcissist, she has totally everyone fooled. Everyone. Yes, and that's its own level of re-victimization is like, oh, on so many levels. And I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I can only imagine. Gosh. Yeah, David says, he says, personally, I find the joy in small things. Saying hi to a stranger, helping another just by listening, firing up some Duran Duran, making my dog smile. Totally. It's okay to feel good right now. Even though you feel like your life is blown apart, it's okay to feel good. You can experience both. Because both painful things and pleasant things are going on simultaneously in life. And that's how it will always be. It just depends on what you're going to focus on. And I totally get how it can be all encompassing when there's so much pain. Even if you can do something where you visualize picking up and setting down certain emotions. I think that can be very, very helpful. I personally think it helps to kind of soften the brain up, because PTSD, like that kind of trauma that goes off in a person's life, it's like your brain just seizes onto that event and it has a hard time letting go. So realizing this is what's going on in your brain, but that the front part of our brain, the logical and critical thinking part of our brain, has the ability to kind of take charge, I guess, because all of that kind of stuff with the seizing onto the pain, this is happening on the more of like the emotional parts of our brain. So if you can be kind of like the watcher of that and not get caught up in it and realize, okay, I need to think of it as like physical therapy almost, but physical therapy for your brain. And part of it is paying attention to, okay, this is how I feel now. I feel anxious, I feel angry, I feel depressed, I feel fearful, however you might feel. How does this feel? How does this feel in my body? Where am I holding my stress? Is it in my shoulders? Is it in my back? Am I clenching my teeth? Am I grinding my teeth? What is my body doing? And then practicing putting it down. Now your brain is probably not going to like that. I know this might sound very strange to some people, but just stay with me. Your brain's probably gonna, it might feel like you're almost like betraying yourself, like that you're faking it. But think of it like physical therapy. When you do physical therapy, it's not easy. Like it's pushing you out of your comfort zone because you have to rebuild strength in a certain area. So practice putting down, okay, I'm really angry. Okay, valid emotion. We're not trying to get rid of it. We're just going to practice picking up another emotion for a little bit. So we're going to set that down and we're going to go pick up the emotion of joy or happiness for the next 15 minutes and put a time frame on it. And then for the next 15 minutes, go watch a cartoon, go watch a comedy, go do something that's enjoyable that will get you hopefully easy, like find a way to kind of easily get yourself into that enjoyable state. Music is great for this. YouTube videos can be great for this. Comedy, cartoons, these kinds of things where you don't have to you can kind of just turn it on and then it's going to catch your attention. So you don't have to consciously be thinking for 15 minutes how to feel joyful or how to have fun, right? Like you're just getting caught up in that. If you can tell your brain, I'm going to go do this for 15 minutes, and then when I'm done, then we can pick up this intense emotion of sadness or anger or what have you again, and we can clench onto it. It's the weirdest thing when you start realizing that you can pick it up and put them down and giving yourself a time frame, because your brain's going to panic and be like, no, I'm really angry and I'm really sad and I need to feel really angry and really sad. I don't want to feel anything other than angry and sad. But to soften that up and be like, yeah, but I need to laugh. Like this is too much. And give yourself that. It's really powerful stuff. And that's really, I think, goes very far in moving forward and healing. Oh gosh, Kevin says, how do I get through going to the dentist? I have 11 cavities that need to be filled and 1 tooth pulled. I was re-traumatized from the initial visit, which was just a cleaning, let alone actually getting the work done. Okay, so let's come up with a game plan. So what's good about this is that you are able to be aware of this was a traumatic event. It was very triggering, and I have to go back and do this. I need to come up with, I don't want to experience this again. So you have a lot of clarity about what's going on, which is awesome. Like that's huge. So okay, then thinking what can you do to make this as enjoyable as possible? And then kind of reverse engineering it. Because for most people, the idea of, wait a minute, no, like I just had 11 cavities and a tooth pulled. Like there's nothing enjoyable about that. However, you can make aspects of that really enjoyable. So let's say, for example, you really like Guns N' Roses, the band, right? And on the way there, you can jam out to Guns N' Roses. You can listen, you could find ahead of time, so you could get yourself in a really good mood ahead of time. You could maybe order your favorite, or get your favorite meal for breakfast that morning. You could, while you're at the dentist, I always make sure your phone's fully charged and then bring headphones and listen to music there. Something that is going to distract you as much as possible. Then have some sort of plan after that. You could plan on taking a bunch of pictures of yourself and how the funny faces that you're gonna make when you have all of that Novocaine, right? And send them to certain people. I don't know. You could decide to do something really rewarding for yourself that night, whatever that might be. So just trying to make that whole experience as enjoyable as possible is, I think, always a good mindset to have when we have to do something that's that unpleasant. Same thing, that could be that same goes for if you're going to go to court, or if you're going to have to see your ex, or if you're going to have to deal with any unpleasant event that you know is coming. Figure out a way to make it as enjoyable as possible. There was a gal, this was like when I first started doing this, who had emailed me, and she was going to go to her son's wedding. And she was so upset because her ex was going to be there. She knew it was just going to be, he was going to heckle and harass her. She didn't want to go. She, obviously wanted to go because it was her son, but she just didn't want to be put through all of this, and she was getting all worked up about it. And so I was saying, like, how could you make this fun? How could you make this fun? Like, how could you make this enjoyable? And so I had brought up some ideas that, you could bring a friend with, because she's like, I don't have a date to go with. I don't, bring a friend, even a coworker. Just let them know what they're walking into, but bring somebody with you that you're going to enjoy going with. You guys could even make it into a game of how many snarky things that you think he's going to say. You could take bets ahead of time. Make it fun. Like, detach emotionally from it. Realize whatever he does, it's a game, and it only works if you get sucked into it. If you see it for the nonsense that it is, it looks pathetic and immature. So she had decided that she was going to bring a friend, and that they were going to make it into a game, and that she was going to come up with some responses ahead of time. And so I guess he had normally always made, put her down about her appearance and about her weight. And so she decided ahead of time, instead of getting so knocked off balance by that and so upset, that she was going to prepare for that. She was going to anticipate that, and that she was going to have some comebacks. So she was going to tell him, oh, I forget his name, oh, Ronald, you're just as charming as ever. And then she was going to walk off. And, yeah. She realized she was not going to put herself in a situation where she was alone with him or alone with any of his family, that they were going to stay for the part of the reception. I told her, I said, I would love to hear you go to the reception and dance, because she loved to dance. Dance so much that your feet hurt the next day. Like, make that your goal, that you guys are just, you and your friend are going to just go to town on the dance floor. There are going to be embarrassing videos of you floating around. If they're really embarrassing, they might make it all the way to YouTube. Like, set some goals, and really have a great time. And so they did all of that. And she emailed me back, and she went, and she said she just had a fantastic time. It was a great day. She really thoroughly enjoyed herself. Her son had an amazing wedding. So much of this just comes with the mindset that we can prepare ourselves with ahead of time. Don't let them steal your joy, is what it boils down to. Okay, let me scroll up. Comments go so fast. And Kevin too, when you do end up going to the dentist and you get through all of this, let us know. Let us know how it went, and what you did, and what worked and what didn't work. And you might even want to video it. Lots of different things. Yeah, and Diana was saying, just remember how happy you're going to be once you're done. Totally. Yeah. It's gotta, I would imagine you've gotta be in a lot of pain if you've got that many cavities and need a tooth pulled. It's so true. Danielle is saying the worst part of anxiety is the anticipation. Oh, that's so true. That's so, so true. Yeah, that's a really insightful comment. Richter Custom says, after being with a narcissist, you stop and you look around, and everyone around you seems like a narcissist, and you've got to cut a lot of friends and family out of your life. Yes. Yes, that's so true. That's kind of the second wave of that, like awareness. You know, the first wave is the whole like I don't trust myself. I doubt myself. I doubt my perceptions of things. Like I don't really know what's going on. And then the second wave is, am I losing my mind? Like there are a lot of narcissists, like, you know, big time, you know, emotional manipulators, if you will, in my life. And once you start seeing, it can be terrifying, and it can really make a person wonder, maybe I've been reading too much about this. Maybe especially to other people, because they're like, oh no, you know, that's just mom. Like she's always been a little bit off, and yeah, you know, she's mean and cruel and abusive and all these things, but you know, she's not. That's just mom. Like she's not a narcissist. But the more you start waking up to kind of what's toxic and what's healthy, you'll really start to see all of the toxicity in your life. But the beauty in that is that once you start cutting that cancer out of your life starts to work. You're just like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can fly. Like I just, how have I been going through life being this weighed down? It's very, very empowering and exciting, you know, when you start realizing it. Salon was saying that he thinks procrastination is part of his flight response to things. Yeah, it's mine too. That's a big one for me. It's interesting when we start thinking about things that we do. I think we all kind of have these default coping mechanisms, and everybody's is different, you know. For me, I thought being procrastinating was laziness. I thought that for like the longest time, and I would get so upset with myself. I'm like, why can I not just do this thing? This is ridiculous. And I would get so angry with myself. And it didn't dawn on me until fairly recently. Oh, well, this procrastination, this avoidance is me meeting some sort of need. Like at a subconscious level, like what I'm doing is meeting some sort of need. So what's that about? And realizing that I wasn't lazy, that I was overwhelmed. I had spent flipping decades reading books on, you know, time management and just all kinds of strategies on how to get organized and do all these things. And really what it boiled down to is when I get overwhelmed, I shut down. I procrastinate, I distance myself from things. My car becomes a mess, my room becomes a mess. Things start slipping, and I have a really hard time with dealing with things head on. So those are some big signs. Now that I'm aware of that, like, okay, it's not just, there's more going on here. Like now that I'm aware of it, I can see it, and I can start implementing that self-care a lot sooner. It's interesting when you just start thinking about your behavior in terms of like everything that your brain is doing is working in your highest and greatest good. Like how weird is that to think about? Like every single thing that you're doing, all of the weight that you've gained or lost, all when people are drinking, when they're doing drugs, when they're doing all these things that seem very self-destructive, when they're procrastinating, when they're bouncing checks, when they're doing all these things, every single thing that we're doing is to meet some sort of need, whether or not we realize it. So much of this stuff is subconscious. And if we can get out of judgment and take a few steps back and be like, this is not normal for me. So what's going on? What's driving me to just tune out, to where like I'm not opening mail, or I'm not, or I've gained weight, or things are out of alignment? The answers can be very, very telling and very powerful. Kristen says, it's a big weight lifted to let go of unhealthy relationships, letting go of how they wanted me to be and all of the conditions gone. Yeah, it is. And it's so awesome to be able to just reclaim your power and control and just breathe. And just breathe. I encourage people, another thing I encourage people to do when they are getting out of these relationships is to really make this transition back into reclaiming your power and control. Make it as visual as possible. So consider cutting your hair, coloring your hair, getting some different, doesn't have to be a lot, getting a few items of different clothing, maybe even clothing that you don't normally wear, that clothing that just speaks to you. You're like, you know what, that's totally fun. And that puts a smile on my face, and I'm gonna get it. So I want to wear that. Painting your nails, painting your toenails, just rearranging your furniture, getting some different pieces of furniture, doing as much as you possibly can to just kind of change the energy. I know that sounds hippie woo-woo, but just changing the energy of yourself and of your environment, and just really reclaiming it and being like, this is mine. Getting a vinyl decal that's like peel and stick that you can remove, putting that on your car. These little things, it's amazing how freeing that can really feel when you realize, like, yeah, I can do that. Why not? Yes, Truth Seeker says he went from publicly extreme love bombing me to acting like I didn't exist and speaking down to me publicly. Yeah, that's very, very common. And I'm sorry that you went through that. It's such a crazy making emotional roller coaster when that happens, because most people tend to think, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I thought we had this amazing fairy tale, intense, over the top thing. You were so good and things were so good, and the next thing I know, things are so bad, and you're so horrible to me, but you're acting like I let you down. I just somehow deserved it. And it's so terrible when we start believing we must have deserved it, because they can really make a person feel that way. And yeah, and then when it's done publicly, it's just a whole different level of devaluing a person. Truth Seeker says, I wonder if I'll ever fully mentally heal from the sense of betrayal. Yeah, well, I think so much of what we went through, I guess it depends on how you define heal. And it depends too on how, I think if you can reframe it. I'm just a big fan of making everything positive or negative that we experience in this life, making it work for us. Because what else is there? you know? So it's either gonna sink us or it's gonna help us swim. I'm a big fan of like, what can we do to reframe this so it can help us move to the next level? So in my situation too, yeah, ultimate big time betrayals. And I guess my default response was to myself was, it had to hurt that bad because it wasn't for you. Because you deserve better than that. You know, it had to hurt this bad in order for you to leave. For me, that gave me a lot of comfort, I guess, in making sense of my pain and realizing that that pain was appropriate pain. You know, feeling pain because you were betrayed is an appropriate response. And it's that reminder of being betrayed hurts, and anybody who betrays you is not your people. They're not people that you need in your life. Yes. Oh, I love that. Dragana says, Dana, do you remember what you talked about with designating a color? That helped me so much. Mine is purple. My hair, my toilet paper, my towels, everything is purple, and it makes me so happy. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, my color was red. And my friend who was in an abusive marriage, her color is orange. And so if you don't know the story, it started with me getting out of the shower one day and really just needing a hug. Like, I just wasn't around anybody, and I wrapped myself up in a towel, and like that was like me hugging myself. And it was the realization that I needed, and I think it was even something like telling myself, like, how come nobody loves me? How come I keep getting treated like garbage? You know, like people, like, I need, when is this going to happen? Like, when are people going to start being decent to me, right? And then it was the realization of like, I need to start loving me, and this can start now. And I went to the store and I bought some red towels, and I would get out of the shower and I would wrap myself up, and that was my color of like, Dana, I love you. And I would wrap myself up in a red towel and just give myself a hug. I know it sounds maybe kind of silly. And I would tell myself, like, Dana, I love you. I love you. You freaking matter. Like, you matter. It doesn't matter that these awful people didn't see that. That's their loss. You know, you're a good person and you matter. And like, just getting, you know, like getting colors that designate that you matter, and that you are worthy of love. So for me it was red, and I began telling other people, red is my color. This is what this means, and you're going to start seeing a lot of it. So, and then I have a red coffee mug, I have red, you know, I have all kinds of little red tchotchkes, and that's where that came from. So yeah, it's like my power color. So I love that. I love that Dragana found purple toilet paper. That's hilarious. Like, where do you even find that? But yeah, you know, coming up with your own power color. You can paint your nails that color. You can dye your hair that color. I love that you did that. That's so cool. You know, and it's fun. It's fun. Even if you don't necessarily buy anything new, like Bittersweet was saying, hunter green is my favorite color. Even if you have existing items that are hunter green, realizing that is now going to be your power color. And whenever you see hunter green, that's a reminder to you that you love yourself. I love it, Danielle. Yes. It says, it's cliche, but writing affirmations on the bathroom mirror helped me. I love that. Yeah, oh, so I was saying earlier, you know, I had written all these affirmations down on index cards. I would go through, I had actually several stacks of these. I had one in my wallet and I had one by the side of my bed. And I would flip through them. Whenever I started finding myself like sinking into that quicksand, I would pick up those cards and I would start flipping through them. and multiple times until I would kind of ramp up my energy to a good place. I just would not let myself get so low, because I've been that low before, and I'm like, I cannot sink that far, like, ever again. I can't, because I don't know if I'd come out of it. And so that really helped, just going through those cards over, and the affirmations that you can write. You can, even if you're at a loss, you can Google affirmations and read some that other people have written. You know, some other ones of mine. Follow your peace. Follow your peace. That was another big thing for me. Is I really think this is where this came from, but I don't really remember. But this is what I think. My friend had given me this little flip book of quotes, and one of them was the Joseph Campbell quote of "Follow your bliss." And I remember thinking, oh, I am really far away from bliss. Like, I don't have any bliss to follow. I was in such a low place. But it was weird. It was just like this moment just like spoke to me, and it was follow your peace. Follow your peace. And that was the one thing that I had to hang on to during all of that, because I couldn't figure out where I'd gone wrong. Jack was so charming and like Mr. Perfect, and then yet at the same time I think he was trying to kill me. So, and he had this whole double life, and I mean, all of it was so over the top. But the one thing that I had to hang on to was I had no peace about him when I first met him. I felt that there was something off. I was feeling like there was something off towards the tail end of things. I didn't have a lot of, even though I loved my life, there were a lot of things that I didn't have peace about. And so that was a big aha moment for me. Follow your peace in anything in life. If something feels off, it's because it is. So, you know, follow your peace, start there, and then follow your bliss. But don't if following your bliss involves not having peace about it, then something's off. So, yeah, finding some really great affirmations can really help keep a person grounded, yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, Lucy is saying, truth seeker. Some of them are such good liars, it's not at all your fault. Oh, totally. Oh, truth seeker. You know, it's one of those things, like how a person, you could read about this stuff all day long, and until you actually experience it, it's hard to believe. I mean, we all think that we would be able to spot problematic people or problematic situations, you know, and, you know, again, my situation, I was teaching this stuff. I was working at a domestic violence shelter. I was teaching kind of red flags of problematic behavior, and yet I found myself getting caught up in not one, but two narcissistic relationships within a span of several years. And I just thought I should know better. If anybody should know better, it should be me. And like, what am I missing? I just didn't get what I was missing. I was missing a lot of things, really, but I didn't get it. And it's the difference between like theory and application. It's like one thing to actually know this stuff. It's another thing to actually put it into practice. And it's hard. It's so hard when we have an emotional investment, and especially if an emotional investment in a situation working out, odds are we're not going to see it clearly. That goes for any of us. So it's, you know, it's hard. It's hard to see people for how they are, especially when they're like really good liars and manipulators. Yes, and truth seeker, this is what they do. She says, he told me over and over and over of my potential, and then suddenly I was nothing. Yeah. They will do that. Some of them, the malicious ones especially, will really build a person up. And they will tell you, how beautiful you are. They will sniff out all of your vulnerabilities. They will bring that person to the highest high, and then they'll kick out that chair underneath them and drop them to the lowest low. And it's nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do with you. It's all about power and control on their end. Because that makes them feel superior if they can bring a person to the highest high and then drop them to the lowest low. It's not you, it's him. Elise says, in my country, narcissism is not debated or related to domestic violence. It's not really related to domestic violence here either. It's bizarre. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't even know if actually I do know, abusive people in general many times are not even considered to have a personality disorder, let alone like narcissism, which I think is wild. And I think there's a wide variety of reasons for that. I think one, therapists too, different mental health clinicians also think, they're going around thinking that they can spot a sociopath or that they can spot a narcissist. And if they come across that problematic person who doesn't fit their idea of how a narcissist acts, if they're telling themselves, oh, a narcissist never apologizes, a narcissist is a man, right? Let's just start there. If they don't even have it on their radar that a woman can be abusive, like, how many people does that leave in the dark? Lots and lots. If they don't have on their radar that, a narcissist can say they're sorry, a narcissist might go to therapy, a narcissist can say all of the right things, a narcissist might be humble, they might not be grandiose. So they can come across in a wide variety of ways, but if they don't know that, then they're not going to be able to accurately assess the situation. So yeah. Okay, Diana's signing off. She's going to bed. Okay, good night. Good night. We'll see you next week, or I'll see you in the group. I will be there tomorrow. Yeah, Jane says, hey Dana, I'm pleased to know you are doing well and that you are back. What is shocking is just how uninformed the courts are about narcissism in civil cases. Yeah. Narcissism and even like sociopathy or psychopathy, where like I seriously like don't even, it's so frustrating when you get judges or attorneys that don't see it. They just think, oh, this person just needs, it's a slap on the wrist, maybe they'll learn I don't even know, I don't even understand the thought process. It's frustrating. Mustafa says, what about the individual who never discards and always gets left? 5 failed marriages. Well, are you talking about a narcissist who never discards and always gets left? Because sometimes that does happen. I mean, sometimes narcissists don't discard. They ride that wave of supply as long as they can, and they don't jump from person to person. And then their partners are like, you know what, I can't, like, they're in and out, but I can't handle this. So yeah, Jennifer says, I went to counseling with my narc. He was the one that suggested it. Total waste of time, but it was entertaining to watch him try and fool the therapist. Never ever do therapy with a narcissist. Yes, I agree completely. Yep, I agree completely, because it is a waste of time. And the danger with that too is if a person, I'm glad that you had the awareness that he was the one with the problematic behavior, and so it was entertaining to you to watch him try to just run his game up in this therapy session. But it can be incredibly, incredibly re-victimizing if a person's in an abusive relationship. They don't know it, their therapist doesn't know it, and the narcissist is able to manipulate the therapist and their target into thinking that the target has the problem, that they're highly emotional, that they're bipolar, that they're just flat out crazy, or that they somehow need to be a better partner or spouse, that they need to lose weight or dress differently or do all these things. And so here's this partner who's getting manipulated by two people coming at them, and it can be, mess with the person's mind at like epic proportions. Ooh, I like that quote. Yeah, Gamer Christina says, her quote is, "Patterning your life around other people's opinions is nothing more than slavery." And that's by Lawana Blackwell. Yeah. It's so true. I heard a quote the other day. I don't know who said it, but I really liked it. It was something along the lines of, they had asked the person what their definition of evil was, and the person said, oppression. And that just struck me as so profound, because really at a core level, that's what it is. If one person is oppressing another, generally, which is done through using, abusing, or exploiting them, it's flat out evil, because we're denying that person is being denied an opportunity to grow into their highest and best self. So just something worth thinking about. Jennifer says, yes, my narcissist totally threw me under the bus in therapy. It was ridiculous. And Missouri Cowboy, I got it right this time, says, it was a wake-up call to watch the narcissist do the victim role with the therapist and watching the therapist buy it. Yeah. Yep, I saw that all the time. All the time at my old job. And what was so crazy about that too, my old job, is we would get people that would come in with the diagnosis of like, this person's antisocial. Like that was like a really common diagnosis for patients that we worked with. And still, and this person might have even had like a really horrific criminal record, and still they would come to me with all kinds of stuff like, well, but so-and-so said that, they said X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, well, they're pathological liars. So I don't know why you're believing anything that they said. Oh, they told you that they lost their medicine and that this happened and this happened. And it's like, then you call the pharmacy and nope, they got it filled that morning. Like it just was the level of like ongoing manipulation. And it's like, how do you guys not know this? Like, what did you learn about antisocial? It gets me so frustrated. It's like, what did you learn about antisocial personality? But I think, and again, it's the difference between like learning about it and actually being around it. Because to know, okay, this person exploits other people. Like, what is, like, if you've never really actively experienced that, you're like, okay, they exploit them. Like, what does that really mean? Frustrating. It's just freaking frustrating. Maria, it's interesting. Maria says, I'm missing part of her chat, but she says, this is how I explained my severe codependency, that all relationships were about the other person and fixing them. There was no me, only the other person. That's so true. I can so relate to that. And what's so difficult is oftentimes if we're that way, we don't see the problem. Like, well, like, I'm not the one with the problem. Like, they're the one that's treating me awful, and they're the one with the bad behavior, so they need to fix that, right? And so it can feel really re-victimizing for a person to even talk about, like, well, why are you trying to fix them? Because it's sort of like, isn't it obvious why I'm trying to fix them? I'm trying to fix them because they have problematic behavior. But I think what people are missing is, like, that codependent mindset is, it doesn't dawn on us that we can leave. Whether we have a fear of being alone, or a fear of abandonment, or kind of these outdated ideas about what commitment is, that we just shouldn't have deal breakers and that we should just be dragged through hell. Whatever it is, it takes us a while to register that that's a problem. Yes, Missouri, we did not talk about that, but yes, June 1st party is still going on. So you guys, what time do you want to do a live stream June 1st, which is a Thursday? Jane Doe says, Dana, how can I help educate judges and attorneys on this subject? I am in a unique position with access to them. However, I feel so ill-equipped to discuss it. I guess I would start with, what area in particular do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on, like, parental alienation, or do you want to focus on just manipulative behavior in general, or like how power and control plays out? My guess, here's my 2 cents on it. If I were you, I would start with writing down, just doing, like, just a brain dump. Just write down everything that you think concept-wise would need to be addressed. Things that you wish that more judges and attorneys were familiar with. And then from there, you can kind of shape that into, like, a table of contents. And then from there, then you might be able to kind of flesh out some ideas for material. Okay, Lou says, let's do the same time as usual for consistency. Okay, let's do that then. We'll do 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do another live stream, June 1st, in celebration of Narcissistic Abuse Survivors Day. I should talk to my old roommate in college. Is one of the prosecuting attorneys. She lives in Alaska, and she would be, and she's a bulldog, like, she's a no joke attorney. I should talk to her and see what ideas she has. Because I really do think that not only does there needs to be a lot of more information about parental alienation, and really just information too about manipulative people, and especially that women can be manipulative and abusive. Because women tend to, what men go through, like we were talking about earlier, a fake rape allegation can destroy a guy. So there's a whole other level of issues. I guess what I'm saying is, I would like to see this information being discussed in terms of how power and control plays out with the issues that men have, and then the issues that women have, because it's all issues, but there are very different issues. And parental alienation. So I would like to see that really kind of divvied up in three main ways. Well, the thing is, Katie was saying, Jane, once they know about NPD, hopefully they can change the laws. Well, what's frustrating is a lot of them should realize that if a person's going to court, like if they've got charges against them for like, you know, violent crimes or like criminal behavior, they would generally be diagnosed as antisocial personality disorder. I think there's just not a lot of frankly, I don't think there's a lot of awareness about what these personalities really are. I really do think that people think that they would be able to spot a psychopath or spot a narcissist or a sociopath, and most people can't. I mean, they're oftentimes very charming and they come across as not the problem. If anything, their target comes across like the problem because their target has PTSD and is a freaking wreck, emotional wreck. And yeah, so there's just a lot that needs to be addressed. And that's true too. Kristen says cases are based on what can easily be proved. For example, physical abuse. Yeah, it's definitely the more overt abuse. I think it was the UK that recently made emotional abuse a crime. But again, it's really difficult. It's difficult to prove. Yeah, Dragana was saying it's so tough for guys to go through this. My male friends went through hell but had no help. Yeah, I was watching this really wild crime scene series the other day, like Forensic Files or something, and this guy was this big, tough construction worker, and he was dating this woman who was a violent narcissist, and he had told his friend, he's like, if you see my truck out front tomorrow morning, and he was telling his friend, he's like, I'm afraid she's gonna kill me. Like, this chick is nuts. And he told his friend, if you see my truck outside in the morning, call the police. And sure enough, his truck was outside in the morning, and his friend called the police. And this woman, I mean, I don't even want to go into details because it's going to give you guys nightmares, but she killed him, and and had this history of like really violent crimes towards animals, towards men, and this guy had been reaching out for help, but so much of it was, he doesn't fit the mold of, here's this big, strong guy. He should be able to defend himself, right? But that's the whole thing, like abuse doesn't discriminate, and so much of that abuse is psychological, and if you can get a person's mind, you've got the person. And so this guy was just so wrapped up with this woman. It was, it was awful. So, the point is seeing problematic behavior as problematic. It's a big step in the right direction, because so many people just don't even see it. Oh my gosh, kind of along the same lines. Like, it's just so frustrating when people don't see the most obvious stuff as problematic. There's another YouTuber, she's young, super cute. Her name is Eugenia Cooney. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. I think I'm saying her name right. Incredibly anorexic, like undeniably anorexic. She claims she weighs, I think, 84 pounds. She's 5'9". I don't think she weighs 84 pounds. I think she weighs even less than that. She's truly a walking skeleton. This girl has one of the more extreme cases of anorexia that I've ever seen. And it's amazing how this is people still like come to her defense, and they're like, no, she's just naturally thin. And if you go to any of her videos and you read the comments, people are like, get this girl help. And then other people defend her. And they're like, no, she's just skinny. And it's like, how are you guys in denial? Like, How are you in denial about this person who, like, her clothes are falling off? Like, she's so gaunt. I mean, what do you think anorexia looks like? If you don't think that it looks like that, what do you think it looks like? It's just so wild. You know, it's the same thing with abuse and any of this. It's like, if you don't think that's abuse, then like, what do you think abuse is? Yeah, Kevin was saying survivors of anorexia can have heart failure later on sometimes. Oh yeah, I mean, the damage that's done to your body, that's generally the main cause of death with anorexia is heart failure, because you're not getting the nutrients, you're not getting the potassium, and you know, your heart gives out. It's seriously heartbreaking to watch this girl die, is what it is, on camera. Yeah, Diane says, if a sociopath threatens to kill you, people will say, oh, he was just drunk, he didn't know what he was doing. Yep. And that's, people, especially if they're charming, they're, well, yeah, I don't know if I should say it, the guy, I don't know. I won't use that example, but the excuses that people give are just absolutely outrageous, especially families of the abusive person, like big time enablers. Like, oh, well, you know, he just pulled a gun on her because, you know, they were that's just how they fight. Or the excuses people give, oh, well, he just has a temper, he's a Latin man. Or, oh, she's a crazy woman, she's a Latina. Or, you know, just kind of all of these excuses that, and stereotypes that are not accurate, that people just throw out there as to what, and I think a lot of it is people, it just doesn't compute. Like, we don't think that we could actually know somebody that would be murderous. Like, it just doesn't compute. Dragana says, yes, Dana, my male friend is a big burly guy, full of tattoos, and she is so small. But she had broken him emotionally and then nearly killed him with a hot iron to the head and stabbed him with it. Yep. And that's like overt physical abuse, right? And but there's so many people out there like that covert emotional and verbal and you know, psychological abuse that flies under the radar. It can fly under the radar of the person on the receiving end of it. And we just know how we feel. Like, we feel ground down, we feel tired, we feel hurt and upset, but we might not be able to really pinpoint why, because that some of that abuse can be so stealthy. Adela says, hi Dana, I'm so glad you're having a live stream again. My question is it possible for an empath to paradoxically lose his or her empathy, especially when after empathizing with a narcissist's lack of empathy? Especially after empathizing with a narcissist's lack of empathy. These situations can definitely turn a person into being bitter and jaded and calloused. You know, when you've gone through, I think when you've gone through enough that you become desensitized to it, it's really easy to lose compassion and empathy in general. And empathizing with a narcissist's lack of empathy. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. If you mean empathizing with them, like continuing to be manipulated, like if you're continuing to be manipulated, most empaths and people in general tend to continue getting sucked in by all of the narcissists, you know, kind of cries for help. Like, we have a lot of empathy for them. And anytime they give us, you know, that they, hold on a second, I'm sorry. Cough. When they, you know, if we're empathizing with them, but it's always a lie, then a person can for sure lose empathy for them, which frankly, you know, it's important that we wise up and see that we're being manipulated. I'm not quite sure if that answers your question or not, but it's very easy to become, it's anger. It's very easy to become bitter and angry after this. And, you know, like, I probably was that way for probably a solid year after I went through things. It took me a while to get back to some semblance of myself, you know? So, but I think it can go a long way, just making the declaration that you're not going to let this change you for the worst. Like, that you're going to use this for your highest and greatest good. I remember somebody telling me, because I'm feeling like I'm cursed. Like, I kept attracting all of these problematic men, like married men that wanted to cheat, and you know, abusive men, and just not men that I would want to be involved with. And somebody had mentioned to me, like, well, maybe you should try smiling less. Like, maybe you're just giving out the wrong signals. And then for the longest time, I made myself nuts trying to figure out, like, okay, I need to change. I need to really, like, I need to not smile. I need to not make eye contact. I didn't know what I was doing to, like, attract these people. And then I realized, like, this is who I am. Like, I'm not flirty. Like, I wasn't ever being inappropriate. But I'm like, I'm going to smile, and I'm going to be pleasant and polite to people. I don't think that I was giving out the wrong vibe at all. I think that these people were problematic, and that they were pushing my boundaries is really what was going on. So, you know, I guess the point being is, try to not, like, there's nothing wrong with being an empath. There's nothing wrong with being pleasant and polite and smiling and, you know, talking to people and doing all that. And then also having boundaries with that, and just be like, I can be a really nice person, and if a guy misreads that as I'm being interested in him, I can be pleasant and polite and just say, oh, you know, I'm not I'm flattered, but I'm not interested, or I'm not flattered, I'm disgusted that you would think that I would be interested in cheating. Like, I don't date married men, you know. However you want to handle that, but I guess don't let this change you for the worst. It's okay to be who you are and to be an empath. Yeah, Adela was saying, I also feel the need and the pressure to not smile anymore, or to not be too friendly to others, so I don't attract abuse anymore. What I mean is, if you try to understand how a narcissist came to be so cold and indifferent, and if you so much empathize with what caused their indifference that you begin to feel with their trauma. Yeah, and because, you know, generally, you know, it's kind of the same, like, hurt people tend to hurt people. Like, generally speaking, a lot of abusive people have been abused somewhere along the line. Like, something has happened. That's at least, I would say that's probably at least 75% of the time. But, yeah, you know, we can empathize with that and be like, oh, that's really tragic, but there's no excuse for abuse. Period. End of story. Like we all have decisions that we make about the kind of person that we're going to be in this life, and you know, we can have compassion for them, but not to the point where it sucks us back in, for sure. Um, I am not going to say this name right. Lamias says, Dana, my ex just unfriended me from his Facebook, deleted my comments on his public posts, but he didn't remove those posts in which I am tagged. Alone, and only me and him can see them. What do you think his play is here? Oh, I think it's just to get under your skin. I think it's just to get under your skin. I just block them on Facebook so you don't have to see that. Because if you're trying, it's so crazy making. Like when we're trying to when we're trying to figure out like why are they doing this? Like the reality is we'll never know why. Like there's not a lot of rhyme or reason for what they do other than it all boils down to gaining and keeping power and control. It's manipulative behavior, and who knows why outside of that what their game is. Oh, it's frustrating. Yeah, Kevin says that's a good saying. There's no excuse for abuse. Yeah, thanks. It's so true, right? Like it doesn't matter what somebody does. Like let's say if I was, I don't know, having a dinner party and I was carrying out a hot tray of spaghetti and I slipped and fell and I threw hot spaghetti all over somebody. See, an abusive person would take that and they would spin that around and probably launch into like this verbal tirade, right? And then feel justified for it. And it was like, well, yeah, I yelled at you because you dumped scalding hot spaghetti all over me. But at the end of the day, it's still not, yes, that might have happened. Yes, that probably did hurt. Yes, probably most normal people would probably say a few things, like they'd probably cuss, but they probably wouldn't go on a verbal tirade to tear down that other person. That's the difference. Like it's not okay to actually abuse another person like that, especially if the intention isn't to like harm anybody. But abusive people spin everything around, so in their mind they feel justified. Like they come home and I don't know, you haven't done the laundry, or or you weren't paying them enough attention on Wednesday, and so they cheat on you on Friday because in their mind they're like, well, you weren't paying enough attention to me. Stuff like that, where it's like, what? There's no excuse. It's not okay. Like it's not excusable behavior, Frustrating. Dragona says, narcissists should be called frustration generators. Oh, that's a good one. Totally. That's exactly, crazy makers. Just absolute crazy makers. One of my favorite sayings I heard a while back was somebody saying that never be with somebody who's bad for your mental health. I love that. Like that's so simple and so just, that's it. Like that's what it boils down to. Just don't be around people that are bad for your mental health, that are crazy making, that are toxic, that make you second guess yourself, that make you feel ground down, bad about yourself, that make you lose sleep, that make you cry, that hurt your feelings. Like none of that is necessary. Like it's all abusive, absurd behavior. There's no excuse for it. There's no need for it. There's lots of other people out there that won't treat you that way. Denise says, I'm on my second narcissistic husband, apparently. Tears. That's, you know, and I'm sorry that you're going through this. This is so very common. Very common. Frankly, I think if anything, it's more rare that a person just has one narcissist in their life. Generally, where there's smoke, there's fire. And when we start kind of waking up to this, like what toxic behavior looks like, we start seeing it. We're like, oh my gosh, like there's actually been quite a few significant people in my life that have this behavior. Very, very eye-opening. But unfortunately, oftentimes, it's these really extreme, over-the-top relationships that bring it to our awareness. Because these relationships are like, you can't help but not see that. Like, this is so Lifetime TV movie kind of stuff. And then you kind of back up and you're like, oh my gosh, like my best friend in high school was really, really problematic and, you know, incredibly controlling and jealous and possessive. And I always felt like I was in an abusive relationship, but I didn't think it was possible because I guess she was a woman and we were just friends. You know, but had she been a guy, I would have thought it was an abusive relationship. So anyways, like it can be very, very eye-opening when you start really seeing just how many people like this have been in your life. Yeah. Missouri Cowboy was saying, I'm not sure of the source, but on average a victim leaves 7 times and goes back before getting out, but unfortunately many of the victims do not get out alive. Yeah. When you're talking in terms of especially physically abusive relationships, because all abuse tends to get progressively worse over time. And physical abuse is a late stage sign of abuse. So it's most of the time, if not all of the time, preceded by verbal and emotional and psychological and oftentimes sexual and financial and spiritual abuse. So those things precede that, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Some relationships never escalate to physical abuse, but many do. And so when a person's experiencing physical abuse of any kind, regardless of what kind of physical abuse, I mean, it could be pinching, shoving, you know, it might not be full out beating somebody up, but it might be that physical aggressiveness, slamming them up against a wall, throwing items close to them, making violent threats, those kinds of things. Those are late stage signs. And so if a person continues to go back and they're already at this level of extreme behavior where this person's threatening to kill them, they're smashing things, they're being threatening, they're all kinds of like these displays of aggression, and that aggression's getting worse and worse, and this person keeps going back thinking that that their love can change them, or maybe that this time things really will be different, or what have you. And yeah, many times in a physically abusive relationship, you know, 7 times before they leave for good or they're killed is how those often end. So physical abuse is no joke. But also many times, you know, relationships, it can escalate quickly. There might not ever be physical abuse. It might be, that's the thing where they're so unpredictable, is when you're dealing with somebody who feels justified and entitled, who doesn't attach to other people. It's all about them all of the time. They lack empathy, they lack remorse, they don't have a conscience. Like they're okay with doing whatever. Things can very quickly progress to problematic stuff. I was at the gym earlier today and I was watching a forensic file, and the episode, it was this woman who had died mysteriously, and I didn't see the end of the episode, but she had died mysteriously with a gunshot wound to her head. And somebody was, I don't know if her husband had told them, somebody had told them that it was an accident, like guns, she didn't have gun safety. But this gal had been in law enforcement before, she'd been raised around guns, like she knew, like you don't ever fire a gun. You don't ever fire a gun unless you intended to fire a gun. And anyways, her story was she was married to this guy who was, incredibly problematic. He was a narcissist or a sociopath, and he was having an affair. And she came across this affair, and they went to couples counseling, and here she is turning herself inside out to become this partner to save her marriage. She's dressing sexier, she's losing weight, she's doing all of these things in order to save her marriage, which is problematic, like, right there, because the issue is not necessarily any of those things, right? But then her husband, she thinks everything is fine. They seemingly everything is back on track, and he runs this bath for her, and he says, I really want you to relax. He lit candles. He was on his best behavior, and he brings a TV in, and he puts it on the edge of the tub. He's like, so you can watch your favorite show while you're in the bathtub. And so she's like, okay. And as he leaves the room, he accidentally, quote unquote, knocks the TV off balance, like it's gonna fall into the tub. Well, she catches it with like her foot, and she's able to get it up and out of the tub. And her husband played it off like, oh, he didn't mean to do that. Well, then 5 days later, she dies of this mysterious gunshot wound. And so that night, with the TV, she had called her mom and told her mom what had happened. And her mom had said, do you think that it was really an accident? And she had said, she's like, yeah, I mean, I guess I do. Because it doesn't compute that somebody would actually be trying to kill us. Like, it's a really hard thing for our brain to process. Let alone your spouse who's on their best behavior. Like, it just doesn't add up. And, her mother was saying, like, yeah, he had to have done it. Like, it sounds like a really thinly veiled murder attempt to the mother, and I'm sure the guy ended up going to jail for it because it was on, forensic files. But that's the kind of stuff, like, there was no history of physical abuse. It was just, he decided that she was in the way. So that's what I'm saying. Like, things can escalate very, very quickly. And you gotta steer clear of problematic people like that. So, let me just revisit this for those of you that got here a little bit later. So if you did pre-order my book, that was a total fiasco. And if you did get it on your Kindle, which it sounds like lots of people did, what you got was a very rough draft of my book. It is not the final book. It should have never been released. It wasn't supposed to be released. Amazon, I don't know what happened. They're going to be emailing me on Friday to let me know. So when I put it up for pre-sale, it was supposed to go live on the 19th. I delayed it because I've been really sick. I delayed it to the 31st. It showed that it had been moved to the 31st, but then it didn't, and then the book went live on the 19th, and so all the people that pre-ordered it got this rough draft copy of it. So because I couldn't figure out like how to stop that or how to try to get it down, I had to unpublish the book, which means I took it off for sale so nobody else could buy this rough draft copy of the book. Well, so I don't know how all of this is going to get resolved. I'm hoping to find out Friday. So when the final version of the book does come back up, if the people that pre-ordered it will then automatically get the real version of the book, I don't know. It's just a mess. It's a mess. What, like, epic fail. It was just terrible. So that's what's going on. So if you're reading this book and you're like, wow, this is really, really strange. That's why it's a rough draft. Let's see. 100 Smiles says, I would buy an audiobook. Yeah, I do. Well, cool. I do plan on making this book into an audiobook when it's done. Because I know I'm a huge audio book person too. So, yeah. I love to listen to them when I drive. So that is in the works for sure. For sure. So with that said, and then also if you're just coming on too tonight, we were talking about doing an extra live stream June 1st in celebration of Narcissistic Abuse Survivors Awareness Day. So we'll be doing that 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it'll run about the same, 2 to 3 hours or so. So it'll be an extra time for us to get together. So I think that's it for tonight. Lamias says, Dana, your past experiences have made you who you are now. Do you think if you didn't have them, you would be doing what you are doing now or have written this book? I'm eager to read it. And, oh yeah, life is really funny that way. I knew that I wanted to work in the domestic violence field before I realized I was even in an abusive relationship. So, I was in the middle of one and didn't realize it. So it's weird how things kind of come full circle, and I guess for me, because I did have that mindset when I realized that, a couple years ago, and I realized I need to really make this work for my highest and greatest good, and then make this work for the highest and greatest good of other people. It gave my pain a purpose. And never in a million years did I think it would kind of end this way or turn into this, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And frankly, had it not been Jack or Steve, it would have most likely been 2 other people, because there was a lot of things that I was out of alignment with myself. They were exploiting vulnerabilities I didn't even know I had. So the personal growth from all of this has been absolutely tremendous. And I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, because it's so intense. I mean, you feel like your life is blown to pieces, but in many ways it's exactly what I needed to have happen so I could rebuild my life consciously and authentically, and rebuild my life into something that I loved. So no regrets. None. So, and thank you, Missouri Cowboy, with a donation. Somebody else, does it say who? Where is that? Scott, thank you. Sent a donation. Very nice of you guys. Totally, not expected, but always much appreciated. So, and they're talking about the magnesium oil from last week. Yeah, that stuff's liquid gold. I'm telling you, it's amazing stuff. Yeah, it's all about living your life in chapters, guys. And, you can turn your pain into, even if you don't end up doing this, you can use that energy to drive you forward into a life that you really want, because you have control back. This is your life, and it's whatever you want it to be. It really, really is. So you can, if you don't like the chapter in the book that you're in, start a new one. Start a new one. Yeah. I would love to hear next live stream for you guys to think about, what does that mean? What does rebuilding your life into something you love, what does that mean to you? What does that look like for you? I would love to hear what that means. And for you, if you're comfortable to share it. Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna say good night. Just lots of love to you guys. You're just, it's so cool to see you guys on your journey here, and um, to see how far so many of you guys have come, and to just that we get to spend this time together, and it's just really cool. It's really, really cool, and it warms my heart tremendously. So Adriana, thank you. She says, it's been 1 year this week that I left my sociopath ex-husband. With your advice and support and others on here, that night was the scariest, but it's been the best decision of my life. Thank you all. I'm so glad that we were able to be there for you and to give you the clarity and the validation that you were needing. And I'm excited for you because you're starting this exciting new chapter of your life. So, and I hope it's the best one yet. I really, really do. Okay. So, oh, that would be fun. Missouri Cowboy, real quick, it would be fun to have a recovery center for narcissistic abuse in the mountains with hobbit homes. In nature with all the critters there, both wild and domestic. That would be my dream. I love that. That would be fun. And I think that there is a need for a recovery center. I don't know about with hobbit homes, although I am like 5 feet tall, so I could totally help you run it. So, okay guys, with that, have a fantastic week. I will see you next week. Take care. Just lots of love to you. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal. So take care. Bye.